Hey, what's going on, guys? Alex here with TFL Bikes, sitting next to
Case, and we've got some pretty big news from some of the fastest bikes, well, really the fastest bikes from BMW.
Yeah, we've got updates to their entire sport lineup, basically. So M1000RR, M1000R, S1000RR, and S1000R. So both the, they're all performance bikes, but the naked and fully faired version in both the over-the-top crazy M version and also the more standard M version. There's changes to all four bikes.
Yeah, and some of those changes are the same across the lineup. So a couple of those will include all of these bikes getting a new M quick action throttle, is what they're calling it. So they're reducing how much rotation it takes with the throttle for you to achieve full throttle. All of the bikes are also going to be Euro 5 Plus compliant, and there are quite a few engine and aero upgrades, including some pretty big engine internal upgrades, especially on the M1000RR.
Some pretty big wings, too. We're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to start with? The M1000RR?
Might as well start out where it's the most exciting. So, like I said, updated engine internals on this bike, still 205 horsepower, 83 pound-feet of torque, and a maximum of 15,100 RPM. But they've changed quite a few things, even so. Bigger 52 millimeter throttle body. It's higher compression now, so 14.5 to 1 compression. They redesigned the cylinder head. It's got new titanium valves. They revised the exhaust system, also titanium system. They changed up the engine mount a little bit, and now there is some additional stiffness around the steering head, partly thanks to their redesigned engine mount.
Yeah, so some really big changes in the internals of the engine. There's also some changes in terms of rigidity in the frame and stuff. So they're saying, especially around the steering head area, it's going to be a little more stiff now. And there's also new fairings with more downforce. So we've got these huge wings on the side of the bike now that look very similar between the M1000 and the S1000RR. And we'll get to those wings on the S in a second. The M already had some really big wings. They're now even a little bit bigger, a little boxier, and they're saying 16 pounds more downforce at 186 miles an hour. Some people love the wings, some people hate them. I think these look a little crazy and a little over the top.
Yeah, and obviously they're not doing it purely as a function of style. So these wings, they do make a bit of a difference, especially at really high speeds as far as how much extra downforce you're getting versus the previous bike. And the faster you go, the bigger, the more dramatic that difference is. But yeah, they are quite the dramatic piece of aero at the front, very front of that motorcycle. There's also no more M aero wheel cover on this M1000RR, but they've added some new electronics, including a new slide control feature as part of the traction control programming. These bikes have an extensive tech suite. And really, throughout, they have made quite a few incremental updates. There's nothing on, well, really any of these bikes that is, I would say, dramatically different. So if you already have an M1000RR or an S1000RR or the single R versions of the bikes, I'm not sure it's going to be worth upgrading to one of these new models. But if you've been waiting to get one of these, it might be worth getting one of the new ones that are coming out, because quite a few upgrades, but nothing dramatic.
Yeah, totally. If you've got a last generation bike, probably well worth the upgrade at this point. But if you're, a BMW rider has got one of these bikes that's 2 years old, you're not going to see a whole lot of improvement. So yeah, there's basically everything with the M1000RR. Let's move on to the S1000RR, which I think is going to be a lot more relevant for most people, because this is the bike people actually buy. The M1000 is the one people want. The S1000 is the one people actually take home. So similar to the M1000RR, we have revised aero, so you're going to get a very similar winglet up front, new side fairings to accommodate those new winglets as well. And they've done a lot with tech. So like we mentioned earlier, the new quick action throttle, that's going to be on this bike too. You now get the pro riding mode standard, whereas before they were available, but it was an add-on option. They now come on the base bike, which gives you Race Pro 1, Race Pro 2, and Race Pro 3 modes. So if you're taking this to a racetrack and you're really trying to push the limits of the bike, those new ride modes are going to do really well for you.
Yeah, and then like we said before, this bike is also going to have that M quick action throttle that we mentioned. There's going to be a new front wheel cover with new brake ducts, and it's still 205 horsepower, 83 pound-feet of torque. So again, some incremental changes, nothing too dramatic.
Yeah, power is the same and everything. We don't have pricing yet on this one. It used to be about $19,000 for the base model. I don't think it's going to get pushed up too much from that just because they haven't done a ton to it. They added some riding modes. They changed up the aerodynamics a little bit, but not a whole lot has changed, so I don't think we're going to see a huge price increase.
No, and then if we move to the S1000 Single R, that was a bike that was about $15,000 starting. Once again, we'll probably see a little bit of an increase there. But this bike, pretty nice, is actually going to have a little bit of a horsepower bump. So it's 170 horsepower now. That's 5 horsepower more than it used to be. And they say, BMW says that it's due to a change in geometry of the intake ports and a few changes to the mapping for the motor. So once again, small changes, but a 5 horsepower boost. Not a bad thing to have.
Yeah, not at all. Always good to see a little more power. Some of that's probably due to, the changes they had to make for Euro 5 Plus, but still cool to see that they're adding power even though they have to make changes for emissions compliance. The gearing's also been revised a little bit, so shorter final drive ratio now, so it should be just slightly better for acceleration. And like the rest of the bikes, improved tech as well. So you now have drag torque control standard, whereas before that was an option. They approved the shift assistant a little bit this year. And then also you're going to get a new headlight up front. So you now have this kind of dual beam, dual flow LED headlight is what they're calling it, whereas before you had sort of a single headlight unit up there. So dramatically different look, at least in the front, the nose of the bike, but the rest of the bike doesn't look all that different. Wheelbase is now 0.4 inches longer than before, so slight change in geometry. And they're also doing some really crazy colors on the S1000R this year. Most notably is this kind of highlighter yellow and bright blue combo that I think looks pretty crazy.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look like something that would be on a factory bike. It looks like something somebody would do in the aftermarket, but it's unique. Sets it apart a little bit, so that could be cool. And then finally for the M1000R, and again, previously this was a $22,000 bike starting. BMW hasn't announced the new prices for any of these, but once again, we'll expect that it's probably going to be a little bit more. This M1000R is going to have some new M winglets, so like a lot of the other bikes on this list, and it can either be in a black textured paint or in carbon fiber. They're also going to have dual flow LED headlights that are new, and some new finishes on a few different components on the bike, like the clutch, like the frame, like the swing arm. So very minor changes there. So we should expect hopefully some minor changes to the price. So overall, just some small tweaks to the lineup. When you have bikes that are at this level, especially as far as performance, there's only so much you can do. Each model, when it gets updated slightly, it's not going to be leaps and bounds of difference, especially when you do have to comply with that Euro 5 Plus emissions. So still a couple of welcome changes, especially on that M1000RR.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. I mean, the tech suite has always been really impressive on these bikes. Not a whole lot they can do there. I think the design has been pretty good on these bikes. So yeah, I'm not mad that there's incremental changes here. I think these are all good changes to see. We'll have to wait and see what the prices are when those come out. But I'm really curious what you guys think about, especially the new wings on the S1000 and the M1000RR bikes. So drop us a comment and let us know your thoughts on the wing design.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all for this video. Hopefully we'll get a chance to actually ride these bikes at some point. But until then, we'll see you in the next.